Hello, hello. I'm going to start this talk by giving everyone here a little present I brought. So please take one. This is a little digital library I made for this talk. It contains a lot of the books I used to work on this talk. And it's just a little example of how books are dead, because now you can carry your complete library in a keychain. And I think that proves completely the point that physical books are in their last age and about to die. If you scan the QR code, you can follow some of the books I'm going to mention, and you can also download them and use them. Someone's missing? Everyone? Oh, you. I'm sorry. This is my sister, by the way, and my dad. Okay. So I want to start this little talk thanking David Sr. for inviting me and thanking Print and Matter for having me. I've been giving this talk in a couple of fairs, and it's always kind of controversial and kind of rage bait for some people, because the declaration that books are dead is quite unusual in this kind of environments, of course. But give me a couple of minutes and I'll elaborate more. First of all, I want to introduce me. My name is Errant Sobrino. I'm a book artist. I was born in Mexico City, and I recently moved to LA. I run a project called Errant Press, where over there in the table E25, we make artist books. And we make books especially that challenge the traditional physical form of the book and try to propose new reading dynamics. I'm also, to be honest, the most important thing, or the thing that brought me here is that I'm a reader. I'm a passionate reader, and I'm a book lover. I love books more than anything else. It's part of my life, and it's how I understand the world and how I relate with people. If I meet someone new, I usually don't know what to say. I get nervous, but if there is a book in front of me, I know perfectly how to behave, what to say, how to talk. And it makes me more comfortable to express myself through books than through any other medium. Some 5-6 years ago, I developed a project that was very important to me. I made a public library in a city called Culiacán, Sinaloa. It's one of the most violent cities in Mexico. And I developed this library, this public library, the first one in the city, thinking that if I raised the reading index, I could I could help to decrease the violence index. And while I was doing this, I realized a lot of things. One of the most important is that reading habits are changing in the younger generations. It's not something I particularly like, it's just something I really notice. The behavior and the way they approach to books is completely different, especially in public libraries. And so I realized that the printed books are terminally ill, and most of them are dead. But before I explain why and how they are dying and why they are not staying for any longer, I want to try to catch up with the little history of the book. Usually here in the West, when you ask for the history of the book, they tell you this timeline. This is what I call the academic or the scholar approach. It starts with the Sumerian clay tablets, then goes to the papyrus scroll, then the parchment scroll, of course. Then it jumps to the medieval manuscript with codex-shaped books, then the Gutenberg printing press, and finally the digital books. I hate this approach. It's terrible, it's nonsense, it doesn't make any sense. I don't understand why scholars and academics try, well, I do understand. It responds to a methodology and a way of studying and trying to approach knowledge. But first of all, history is nonlinear. You cannot tell history in a linear way. Second of all, it's completely Eurocentric, this kind of approach. It only takes what happened in the West and usually takes out what happened in the East. So I started thinking, how can I explain the book in better terms? How can I approach a better definition of the book? So I developed this framework or this way of thinking that I call the music player approach. With music, it's very simple how you approach music. You have in one side the songs, and in the other side the players, right? The music players. We had 8 tracks back in the day. We had then cassettes. We then have the vinyl, the laser disc, the mini discs that were very cool but very short-lived. Then of course CDs, and finally and lastly streaming devices, iPods, and now Spotify, right? Digital music. Books, in a way, behave exactly the same way. The book is a relationship between a story and the media player, the way we reproduce it. In the beginning, the story players were humans. If you remember the first way that we told the Iliad was by the rhapsodas, and the rhapsodas were hired by by rich people and told the Iliad in a 6-day party, just reciting it verse by verse. It took around a week to have it all said. Then the same story, the Iliad, went into the scrolls. Then the same story became a codex book, and finally you can download the Iliad and play it in your Kindle. So this is more or less how I understand books. The books are not a linear thing that happened, but more a relationship between a story to be told and a player that plays that story, right? And this is very important because each part of this timeline that I showed you in the beginning actually divides in a series of different timelines. Each player has its own timeline and its own beginning and its own end. It doesn't give the book to the next media player. It's still around, like it lives, but it decreases in how people use it and consume it. Take, for example, DVDs. Like, of course, DVDs are not dead, but who buys DVDs anymore? You know, everyone streams movies. Of course, some people like to buy DVDs. I know I do like it, but I've been buying less and less, and I'm sure future generations are gonna buy DVDs. So I'm gonna talk a little bit or explain a little bit how the book was born at the beginning and how each of these mediums have been disappearing and dying over the history. So the death of the book is not something new. It has happened to all of the story players through history. This, I don't know if you recognize any of these images. First of all, here is the divinities Ishtar or Ainana, one of the first Sumerian goddess. One of the first goddess in human history of the human civilization. It inspires a lot of our divine figures. Ishtar was goddess of sex, of war, of love, basically of all the important things, and death, all the important things that we have as humans, right? And in the other side, it's the first known author in history. Her name is Endewana. Endewana is the first author we know that existed. And this is very important because for me, it's like revolutionary that the first author of literature we know as humans is a woman, not a man. And this is some of the things that is like left out when you study the history of the book, that the first author was a woman. And the history of Endewana is quite interesting. Endewana was the highest priest, the high priestess, how do you say priest, the woman priest, of Ur and Uruk, one of these first human establishments in Sumeria. And Endewana was the daughter of the king, and her cousin was trying to take over the kingdom of Ur and Uruk and eventually succeed. And when he did, he decided to change the divinities of the little kingdom, because if you change the culture, of course, you change the mindset, and it's easy to control. And so this high priestess that adore Ishtar realized that if they change the god and the goddess and the culture, the enchantation, the chants they did for Ishtar, the song they sang as a prayer for Ishtar, was gonna disappear. So she decided to write it down, and run away with it. And by doing this, she kept the story of Ishtar alive, but to this day we don't know how this song sounded. We don't know how it was played. We know the exact words, but we don't know the prayer, the rhythm, the things they used to chant this, like in a big group. And this is a great example of how to save the information and to keep the information going, you have to lose a little part of it. So in this case, the Endewana ended up saving the enchantations for Ishtar or Ainana, but lost the way it sounded. And one medium appears and to let another one die. This happens all the time. Music and written word were Siamese sisters that were born together and joined by the heart, but they slowly start to drift apart. All of the literature of this period, we know it was actually songs they used to sing to adore goddess, to have fun, to tell the stories that show how to be brave or what to believe and how humans should act. And well, of course, from this from this oral tradition, we transition to the first Sumerian clay tablets. The clay tablets obviously started not as something to keep record of literature and stories, but something to keep record of transactions. The first Sumerian tablets were actually records of debt, of who owned who. And so they are not really books, but this is the way we started recording information. And of course, the Sumerian clay tablets eventually died because they are very difficult to maintain through time, and gave birth to the papyrus scroll. The papyrus scroll is one of the longest lived forms of the book. It lasted longer than the codex book is now alive. Like their lifespan is bigger than the codex book. So papyrus scrolls were huge. Of course, the Library of Alexandria carried a lot of these papyrus scrolls and tried to concentrate all of the books from the world. And I love this example because Alexandria, even though it's a great library, it's also a power structure. They chose what to display, who can enter the library, who can read the books, and of course, other cities didn't like it. One of these cities was the rival city of Pergamus. Pergamus, because they couldn't have like the same material, the papyrus, they developed their own material, and that it was parchment. Parchment is made with animal skin instead of organic matter, instead of vegetable of the papyrus. And the thing about parchment is that it lasts longer, and whenever it gets wet, it doesn't disappear, it doesn't disintegrate, because papyrus, once it gets wet, it's almost done. It's completely fragile. So when they develop this, they not only develop a new way of reproducing books, they also develop a new way of exercising power and showing books to different people. And it meant not only at the death of the book, it meant also a shift of politics and power through one city to another. The Ptolemaic Empire eventually fell, and Pergamus eventually became the biggest city in the East. And I think this is a great example to understand how books die, because when Pergamus was invented, papyrus didn't disappear like magic. People still read a lot of time with papyrus scrolls. For centuries, they kept using them until they start falling apart and dying, and parchment took over. Some of the papyrus scrolls found are completely illegible, but some of the parchment scrolls found are completely useful and can be still read to this day. After the parchment or the Pergamus scroll, we have the medieval copy, the medieval book. The medieval book was completely hand copy. It now has the usual codex structure we know. It was the codex structure was first used as a Roman notebooks with wax And the wax was carved by kids writing and training the writing of Homeric verses. And it eventually developed into this form, using, of course, parchment as paper for the medieval copies. And again, when the medieval book started becoming popular, the parchment scrolls didn't disappear from one day to another. They kept using the parchment scrolls. But you can see, if you analyze the timeline of each medium, that it gets to a maximum point and then starts falling. And people is going to still use it, but the more time it passes, the less people use it. And you can see the rise of the other medium. And I think also this is a great example. Same material, different form, and one form rises and the other one starts declining. After the medieval book, we have the movable typefaces. Another thing I despise about the academic or the scholar timeline is that they always mention the Gutenberg press as the first printing press. That's a completely lie. The Jingji press, made in Korea, the Jingji is actually the first book published with a movable type form. It's in Hangul. It's a compilation of Buddhist texts, and the Jingji was published at least a century before the Gutenberg Bible. And I think it's also important to mention this because a lot of scholars and the traditional timeline tells you like, oh, but the Gutenberg press meant a social revolution in the West. That's completely false. They printed Bibles. They were trying to promote and indoctrinate the people. It was pure propaganda. While the Jingji press, we know it was a truly democratic revolution because one of the first published books after the Jingji using this press was a manual on how to use the Jingji press. So everyone can print their own things, not the things that power want people to read. So it's a completely different story in the East. This is not news. This is recognized by all people that study the book. The Jingji is at least a century before the Gutenberg press. And not only that, if you see the timeline of the movable type press in the East, you can see they use first wood, then ceramic, then copper, and they perfection it till they got into these really easy to cast typefaces and their own thing. And if you see the history of printing in the West, the Gutenberg press just appears out of nowhere without a tradition of centuries. It feels like kind of a copy of the Jingji press, but that's a speculation. The thing that is a fact is that it appeared at least a century before the Gutenberg press. And after the Jingji press, we have the printing revolution. It evolved into this offset printing and digital printing, and now everyone can print a book. We passed from the medieval manuscript to the Jingji press, and now books are so easy to print. Like almost anyone at their places can write a book and print one. And we get here to the climax of the Codex book. For me, the climax of the Codex book is the mass media Penguin paperbacks. This was the first time in history that people could have a classic book from all over the world, from great authors like Clarice Lispector or like André Breton or like you name it. And in a format that was easy to carry in a back pocket, easy to handle, in a fair price, and it reached everyone. This is the highest point of the book as we know it, of the Codex form book, of the book you see in all the fairs, this boring square-shaped book. This is the climax. This is the best moment of it. After this, the decline started, and this was almost a century ago. So, if after that we haven't really had any changes in the book, in the Codex form book. Actually, it started evolving into different things. You can check like Stéphane Mallarmé first publications, where he started playing with the space between the pages and creating accordion books and putting the verses in different ways, trying to explore like what the Codex book can give us back, like how can we expand this thing. But because it was already saturated, They did everything they could. The codex was perfect with the penguin paperbacks. The shape, the amount of paper used to create each one was perfect. There's nothing else we can do after that. So what is the next form of the book? If the penguin paperbacks are in the highest point, and then it started falling, what is the next point of the book? Of course, digital books. Digital books are the next form of the book. And these are the future. So when I say books are dead, I refer to the traditional boring square books you can find all over this fair and all over in any bookstore. And for me, the next form of the book is made out of zeros and ones. And let me tell you why. All of the libraries made in history have one objective: to preserve all the knowledge of the humans. All we know try to be captured in the library. But of course it faces an important problem, that it's space. There's no enough room in any library, in any house, anywhere to fit all human knowledge. But the digital world lacks this space. It's not a real space, but a digital space. So the first reason why digital books are taking over is this space. I live in a small apartment here in LA. I have over 1,500 books, and most of them are in boxes in my garage because I cannot fit them in my house. It's impossible. I don't know how. So I just keep the ones I haven't read, or the ones I want to read and haven't downloaded them. But to be honest, the last 400 books I read were on a Kindle because it's easier. And if you talk to research, I talked yesterday to a book designer, and they all read in Kindle because it's impossible for a serious reader to keep up buying books. It's impossible. No one has enough space, and no one has enough money. That leads me to the next point: accessibility. As I told you before, I come from Mexico, and I live in Culiacan, Sinaloa. Most people there do not have the money to buy on books. If you want to be a doctor, for example, and you live in a small town from Sinaloa, like Pericos, and you are faced and you have to pay like 1,000 pesos for a book, you don't have 1,000 pesos. But if you go to any of these websites, you will probably can download a book in real time and become a doctor. And this kind of knowledge is available for anyone, anytime, anywhere. And that's another reason digital books are taking over. We're taking out the power structures with digital books and making knowledge easy to get for everyone, everywhere. Not just the powerful countries, not just the rich countries, not just the books that people want you to see. They are not controlled. You can find any type of books with any ideology in the public digital libraries. I am a volunteer for Anna's Archive. Anna's Archive is one of the biggest shadow libraries in the world. It's free. And this morning when I checked, they had 15 million books in English, plus another 20 million books in Chinese. And of course, they have millions of books in Spanish also, and in almost any language available. And I love this because when I was a teenager, I didn't have the money to buy all the novels I wanted to read. Sometimes I stole them, sometimes I get them from the library, and now I don't have to leave my couch when I need a new book, and I can just read and read and read and keep reading without anyone intervening in this process. Of course, this opens a debate about copyright and a lot of things that I'm willing to have, and I think it's an important discussion to have. I hate copyright. I think it's stupid that some things like the right to print a book lasts longer than its commercial lifespan. That's stupid. That's gatekeeping knowledge. So you cannot find a book in a store, and you cannot print it yourself because you are committing a crime. I truly don't understand it. So, but I think it's a good discussion to have, and this kind of libraries open the discussion for copyright and for the next steps. But I think this is another great thing, that another great reason of why digital books are taking over the physical books. And of course, portability and memory. A lot of the knowledge and a lot of the important information we have produce as humans is being deleted or controlled or filtered by an algorithm or by power structures for us to consume exactly what they want us to consume. A lot of the most important books I know are not available in even the great Los Angeles Public Library because some people don't want to share some information. And I understand, it's okay, it's their interest, it's their money, it's their thing, okay. But with digital books, you can access all information made by humans all through history in any time. So this is another reason why digital books are taking over, because they are not filtered. And this is super important, I think. This is a picture of one of my heroes, David Graeber. If you're not familiar with him, you should definitely approach. He's an anarchist from the London School of Economics, an anthropologist. He has an amazing book called Depth, 5,000 Years of History, and it's available in the keychain I gave you. And then the fourth reason the digital books are taking over is changes in reader habits. To be honest, young people, and not even young people, myself, when I look for recipes on my phone, I usually watch videos because it's easier to watch videos than to read a recipe and try to figure out the correct way to do like eggs or whatever. And this is like, this has been happening for a long time. Like cooking shows are popular. Like I knew Julia Child had their own cooking show. So now, and cooking books are so big and sometimes so expensive. I think it's ridiculous to own cooking books. I love cooking books, but it's ridiculous to own them. Like you use one recipe for a huge book, you pay like $80. Like who? Like instead you can have all of your recipes in your iPad. Use your iPad, go there, and then watch a video on how food is made, and it's gonna be better. So we're definitely changing the way we consume information, and this is very obvious, for at least in my way of seeing in cooking books. Cooking influencers are taking over, and they're getting more and more popular. So we're definitely ditching cooking books and recipe books for videos, and this not only apply, of course, to cooking videos. It applies to a lot of books. And a lot of people ask me in these talks, like, oh, but then what's going to happen with everyone? Like, I'm a book designer, I'm going to get out of job. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, ever since we had the papyrus scroll, the parchment scroll, the medieval book, and then the printing book, we had designers, we had writers, we had printers, we had all the infrastructure for books. This is not going to change. Writers are going to write, designers are still going to design books, readers are going to read, but books are going to keep evolving as they have been doing over and over the years. Something I think it's going to change is how translators translate books, because now translating with AI is easier than doing it yourself. And that part of the book is probably going to change a lot. Translation, I think, is going to die, or get more AI help, you know, like, yeah, it's easier. Even I translate books, and sometimes I use AI, and it gives me more resources and more words that I know, so it's very, very, very powerful and very useful. But aside from translation, I think all part of the book process is going to stay the same. The only thing that is going to change probably is the profit of the best sellers companies. That's definitely going to change, because when digital books take over, the best-selling market is going to collapse. It's not going to keep, the amount of money it needs to keep going, it's not going to be profitable. So probably these kind of mass-produced books for young audiences, and yeah, the mass media market is gonna not get enough money. And well, this leads me to another question. So what books will survive? Of course, artist books are gonna survive. These are the main books are gonna survive. Why? Because you cannot digitalize the experience on artist books. Yesterday I bought a beautiful book by one of the Japanese publishers here, and it's the illustrations, a big book of illustrations, and there's no way you can translate that experience to an iPad or to something. The experience of having a half-meter portrait of a Japanese drawing, it's impossible to take to the digital world. This is one of my books. It's a Molotov cocktail that includes an essay on the history of money, and it's printed on the fabric, and once you finish reading it, you put it in a Molotov cocktail, and you can go to the bank and cash it in. And these kind of games and these kind of jokes and these kind of beautiful things that are present in almost all artists' books are gonna escape the digitalization, because you cannot translate this experience into a digital world. So I'm very happy that even though the book is dead, some of the books are gonna survive. Another kind of books that is gonna survive is the hyper tangible novels. I love this kind of novels, especially like the Book of Leaves, or this one, this other one. Books that play with the relationship of paper and the space and typography and the tactile experience of the book itself, and use the book as the physical object to transcend the words on it. They are not gonna die. This is the kind of books we're gonna start seeing more and more and more, because this experience also cannot be digitalized. And of course, scenes for a long time have been a tool for people to escape the power structures and share important information and share their thoughts. And they're so easy to print. You can print them at home. They are cheap. They can be produced anywhere, almost any time. Of course, scenes are not gonna disappear. Actually, I think scenes are gonna grow as a media. This is a super easy way of sharing information with your friends, with your family, with people in your community. Here is a beautiful, beautiful scene made by X_X at table G16. It's a scene about all the houses she lived through the last year. And I love this. This is a great, great example of how, and of another thing that cannot be digitalized. This kind of experience, scene, it's very difficult to get digitalized. So what's gonna appear now? Well, we're gonna have new formats, specifically 3. The first one, I already mentioned it, the ebook and the e-reader. The ebook, the portable digital file as the story, and the e-reader as the story player. This is the new actors of the game. Another new format is gonna appear and evolve are visual novels. Here in the West, they are not so popular, but in Asia, visual novels are taking over. They are kind of in between an RPG game, cartoon, and comic book. You can interact, you can sometimes also answer, you get these characters, you follow them, you see their dialogues, and they are all built with images and this little green part. And I love this new format because it's so close to the comic book and so close to the traditional literature, but at the same time it's completely apart, and it's its own thing, very popular between teenagers. And another new format that I think is gonna take over are video games. This is one of my favorite video games ever. It's called Ihatobo Monogatari, the stories of Ihatobo. And it's a Super Nintendo game. I know, I'm old, but it's an RPG where nothing happens. You just walk around the town, ask people stuff, and eventually they give you poems of a Japanese poet, and you gather 17 poems of this real Japanese poet, and the video game has no beginning and no ending. There's no real like an ending sequence. You just gather information, gather these poems, and eventually you're done. You can just keep walking through the town, and it's like it's a beach town in Japan, and I love it. This is one example, but of course nowadays you have crazy examples of video games that are really close to what literature is. They tell a story, they are super immersive, and I think these kind of formats are gonna keep evolving into new ways. Well, I just want to close this talk by uh, quoting one of my favorite Mexican writers. His name is Gabriel Said. I think he's the best and last Mexican writer. And it says, what does it matter how cultivated and up-to-date we are, how many thousands of books we've read? What matters is how we feel, how we see, and what we do after reading. It doesn't matter if it's on paper or digital. The most important thing is what happens inside you after reading and how it affects you and how you interact with your community after reading. Besides that, the book is just an instrument. Who cares what form it takes? The most important thing happens inside, not outside. And I think this is never going to change. The books are still going to teach us how to behave, how to act brave, how to get in love, what to say when we love each other. And I think this is the most important part. And that's it. It was a quick talk. Please, if you have any questions, let me know. We have still like 20 minutes. If not, we can just keep here quiet. Yes. Okay. I also brought some gifts for the people that were here early, but if someone didn't get a gift, let me know and I'll give you one.
Yes, and, or but, I worry, I think everything you're saying is true. I worry that while these cathedrals we've built to paper objects that hold all of human history, when they become digital, that all of human history can go away. And then I think, or we start over, or I don't know. I worry about these drives because I've lost them myself and, you know, years of work at times and things like that. So it's more, I'm sorry, I should have ended it like up so it sounded like a question, but I worry.
No, I understand. It can be lost, yeah, but libraries have gone fire in it and they also get lost. Like, it's not something like, paper books are very fragile too. If they get wet, you cannot read them. If they catch fire, you cannot read them. Like, some of the things that libraries face are huge. The San Francisco Public Library made some new buildings to get more books, but they were not enough, so they would start destroying the books that didn't went into circulation for the last year or so. Like, I mean, and if you have a copy of 2 or 3 hard drives, you can keep your collection safe. Of course, it takes some work, but it's still not going to be destroyed by the public library or by, yeah. And I mean, what's the purpose of the libraries? We have to ask this. The real purpose of the libraries is to contain and to handle the information made by humans, the knowledge. And I think the digital, it's easier. I just gave you a keychain that has a lot of information and a lot of books that if I didn't give you this way, you had to carry. Imagine giving me 10 or 20 books for each one. Like, it's almost impossible to share this information. I know that there are risks, of course, but I don't think other form of the books are free of this kind of risk. Yes.
Hi there. Thanks for the talk. And I always, like with the condition of the book fair and stuff like that, I always think about why people are here, you know, like it's always been an open question. I've been involved with like the Print and Matter book fairs for the past 16 years. And there was always this surprise when they first started about how many people showed up. And often it's skewed younger. And I never have a good answer when people ask me why so many people come to these things. And I have a couple theories and a couple ideas. It could be more than one answer, but I just wonder about this, the condition of younger people who are born digital, and this relation to like what is now not their primary media language, and what that creates in terms of a fetishization of the object, but also just always being in a new dialectic with the screen. Like all of the books here are not the same books from the 80s because they're in this new dialectic with the screen that we didn't have before. So it is, these things are tangible and we feel them, and the zines that you show on the screen are like the things that were made 30, 40 years ago. But there's this new media relationship about what they mean vis-a-vis something else. And I wonder if that's something you could talk about in terms of like why you make books, or even like what you see playing out in this sort of history that you expanded upon.
Yeah, well, I think artist books live in their own universe, right? Like novels made out of only text and only words are so easy to reproduce on a digital scale, and it's super convenient to have them digital. But I think artist books are something else. Answering to your questions, I think a lot of people come to get seen buying books, and I'm not kidding. I actually believe it. It's like a kind of a fashion parade. Yeah, you get seen, like it's a social experience with a book in front of you. I'm not judging. I'm not judging. I'm also like that. I don't make books for that, but I understand. Definitely, I understand. When I was younger, it was a very good social experience to hang out with people that also like books and come to these events and listen to boring people like me talk about the future of the book. But I don't know, I make books mostly to, of course, to express myself, to share, to communicate with other people, and to play with the possibilities of the book. I think a lot of the publishers here are just playing and having fun with the possibilities of what can they do with the printed stuff. And I think that part is the most important, just having fun and sharing. Yeah, just like listening to music and having fun. And I think that feeling, you can see it all over the fair and all over these kind of events. Mm-hmm. I think, in a way. But I think it's a very, very big question. Like, mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi. I really appreciate the part of the presentation where you're talking about thinking about how books are evolving and how they also have to evolve. And I work at the American Civil Liberties Union, and we have a Know Your Rights book where we share information about like what people's rights are and like what to know, and I've been tasked to redesign it. But then I've also been thinking like, is someone gonna pull out this book when they really need it? Is this like the most useful part of it? Like, what is the purpose of the book? But I also love the idea of like, it doesn't have to be the same as before, and things can change to be more functional. My question is, what, if any, like type of like book evolution have you seen that you feel really excited about?
Really excited about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. This last part, video games. I feel like they are amazing. The things I played some video games. I don't like video games. I'm not a video game guy, but some of my friends are, and they have pushed me to try different video games. And there are a couple of them, like Disco Elysium, available on Steam. That it blew my mind. It's like, yeah, it's like playing one or reading one of these games that I read when I was a pre-teenager, of follow your own story, like you decide what to do, and then it takes you to a next chapter, and it leads you to different ways, and you reread it and replay it to see like where can you go. And I love these possibilities, like video games can do this, but in a truly immersive way, and great narratives, and I think video games like are now blowing my mind. I definitely want to try to do something in the future like that, like a poetry video game or something like that. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.